Hey guys, you have Rich. This is with Bar Austin, all things Austin, Texas. We're from the born and raised perspective, and we've got a really exciting treat here today. We have from my eyes, I'll go ahead and fangirl out now. I have with me Guy Forsyth. I've seen him as a kid in the 90s. He shaped the Austin scene with blues, played with iconic names like Jimmy Vaughn, Lucinda Williams, B.B. King, you name it, I'm sure he's played with them. Guy, go ahead and say hello, bud.
Hi there, everybody. This is Guy Forsyth. I'm coming to you from the upstairs of the house that we rent in South Austin.
And I thought that was so great. I was reading and reviewing on your new spring tour. You're what? Doing it shows in the living room, the garage, a closet. Pretty clever.
Yeah, that was my wife Jess's idea. She's really brilliant.
Yeah, I like that. So, really getting into it, you've played in Austin since about the 90s, correct?
Yeah, I moved here January 10th of 1990 from Kansas City, and I had just turned 21. And I knew two people who lived in Austin, but I had seen Austin earlier the year before when I was working at Renaissance festivals. I was doing choreographed stunt shows at Renaissance festivals. It was sort of like, being a rodeo clown or something like that. I got to go down to 6th Street and see bands, and I sat in with one of the bands at Joe's Generic Bar, and they were playing blues, and I called tunes, and they knew the songs, and I was like, well, this is great. And I was already working for tips, and the band at Joe's was working for tips. I was like, hey, I could do this all week, and I wouldn't have to spend, 5 days healing for 2 days performing. And so I moved to Austin in 1990. I had two friends who lived here, but both of them ended up moving almost immediately. So I found myself in this town without really anybody that I knew. So I just spent all my time going out and seeing music and also playing on the street. So that's how I got my start.
Cool. I thought it's so neat that you played at Joe's Generic. Most of the viewers out there and people listening, nobody knows about Joe's Generic Bar in Austin. That was such a great place. I loved it.
It was the ultimate dive. It was the least you could possibly have and have a bar. It wasn't so much a building as they threw some long pieces of wood from one building to the other and called the thing in the middle a new building. It was the type of place where you could get a long neck beer for $2 and there was no cover, and the PA was ancient, and there would never ever be enough bleach to cover up the stench of the men's room. It just could never be. But it was perfect because I saw some great shows there, just great performances. And you always felt like you were stealing something if you saw a great show at Joe's Generic Bar. It was just like, this is so cool. Because there was no pretension about it, right? Nobody was famous because they were playing at Joe's Generic Bar for tips. But I saw some beautiful, passionate performers, just wonderful things. Everybody was there for the reason that they love the music and no other reason.
Absolutely. That's the first and foremost. One person always sticks out to me that I'll always live down for seeing there. 2003, I saw Alan Haynes. And my gosh, that guy is unreal. And of course, 2004 it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the next year, that was when unfortunately Joe was murdered, right?
Yeah, I believe that Joe Bates was murdered. Joe Bates owned Joe's Generic Bar and Joe's Fun Shop next to it. And there was a couple years in the early 90s where I was at Joe's Generic Bar most of my waking hours, just that I would play 300 nights a year down on 6th Street. And sometimes I would play 2 shows in a night where I'd start at 7 o'clock and go to 2. Although there was a period in the 90s where they extended the late night cutoff to 3 o'clock in the morning. So there was some time there I was playing 7 to 3.
Yeah.
So you didn't see much of Joe Bates. He would come in with an exotic dancer to collect the money at the end of the night. until he stopped doing that, and people were just supposed to drive it by his house and shove the cash through a hole in his door.
Yeah, it's great.
He was living the dream,
A different time.
No kidding. Different times. That's it. Who are iconic people? Like, I even chose Generic Bar. That was such a place that really brought the blues to Austin. I mean, naming starting off like Jimmy Vaughn, B.B. King. Sure, we know those. Who else did you play with the greats?
Well, like, we can't have a conversation about the blues in Austin without talking about Clifford Antone and Antone's, the Club Antone's, which still exists today and is partially owned by Gary Clark Jr., which describes a really satisfying arc right there, because Gary started as a young kid playing in Antone's when he was just a boy, and has gone out to be one of Austin's greatest exports at present. So
12 or 13 years old or something. Yeah.
Still just the
really,
same
really
guy.
wonderful.
Still just a great guy.
I got to play with Keith Ferguson, who was the original bass player in the Fabulous Thunderbirds. I used to play with him at Joe's Generic Bar and at 311 Club when it opened. And he is, I think, one of the most interesting blues bass players that have ever lived. His approach to playing the bass was different than the basic 4-beat, the approach that you hear on a lot of like Willie Dixon bass, who is the bass player of the blues. But Keith Ferguson just had a totally different approach to the instrument, and it was great. It was amazing. He was a killer musician. He was also a junkie and eventually died. But it was sorry to see him go, because he was a really bright light. But down on 6th Street, I feel like when I first started to play in town, there was a bunch of musicians there, some of whom you may never know their names, because some of them have passed on, some of them have left town. But I feel like I've got a book in me somewhere just of like stories of 6th Street and of the 90s and that particular time, and what a different town it was then. The Austin that I moved to was really the Austin that was immortalized in Richard Linklater's first film, Slacker. Did you ever see that film, Slacker?
Oh yeah.
If anybody out there hasn't seen it, it's worth watching. It's on the slimmest of budgets, and I think it was his graduating thesis or something. But it was all shot with handheld cameras and very inexpensively. But it was shot all over Austin, and it paints a picture of the Austin that I moved to, which has gone the way of all things. The huge influx of people into Austin, and also all the money that's come into Austin, really acts like a solvent. And a lot of the things that I love about this town are harder and harder to find.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's so true. And when Slacker, that paints out the picture of just that Austin that you want to keep Austin that way. Yeah. But unfortunately, Guy, it's not becoming that, is it?
You can't go back again. The only way out is through. We have to keep moving forward. Yeah. That's just the way of the world. You were asking about people that I played with. When I first moved to town, I ran into Tony Price. Tony Price had also just moved to town. She was a fantastic vocalist, and I met her hanging out at a guitar show that was at the Austin Convention Center, and we were just like, all right, well, she said, "Oh, I've got this gig at Antone's. We're opening up for Kim Wilson," and so I got on the bill, getting to open up for Kim Wilson just after I moved to town. And as a harmonica player, that's pretty much like, somebody who just got a pair of boxing gloves walking into the ring with Mike Tyson. It was a sobering, humbling experience.
No kidding. That's awesome.
I think about, as a harmonica player, I think of all these different harmonica players that I some of which have passed on, like Gary Primich, who was a big person on the scene when I first moved to Austin, and who I looked at him and his career and said, he's doing what I want to do. He's got his own band and he's traveling the world, going and playing in Europe, writing his own songs, playing harmonica. So when I first met him, I was like, that's what I want to do. A guitar player by the name of Steve James, who now is living in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh yeah.
And I think that, is one of the best guitar players ever. You can find the guitar is a weird instrument because it's been wrung out by so many people.
Right.
Anytime you pick up a guitar, it's hard to not compare yourself immediately to the icons that you've spent so much time seeing or hearing, like Stevie Ray Vaughan or Joe Pass or Jimi Hendrix or and so anytime you pick up a guitar, it's hard to get past that. But Steve James was a great example of somebody who took the guitar one direction just for about as far as it would go. It was a country blues finger picker and storyteller and historian of the music. I probably, every time I pick up a guitar, I should be sending him a check.
Touche. You always give back to the other ones helping you out.
We all stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, really, you got focusing back on that, you playing the harmonica and everything. I mean, you play so many instruments, guy, that you really put down genres of Americana, blues rock, pop blues rock, just solo guitarist, singer-songwriter. What would you say to the viewers that you really label your own self as far as all of the many projects you've done? What is your real label to you?
My wife calls it Amerikinda.
Amerikinda. I like it.
I have a record that I put out called Unrepentant Schizophrenic Americana. And I am a musician because I'm a fan. And I've tried to get as close to music as I can. And I have found that the best seat in the house is usually the one on stage. And I've started the instruments that I learned how to play. I'm definitely influenced by individuals playing them that I saw play them and went, wow, whatever that is, I want to learn how to do that. I've been attracted a lot to very vocal sounding instruments like the harmonica, like slide guitar, like the saw, because my origin as a musician didn't come through Western classical education. I did sing some choir when I was in high school, sang some voice. I feel like I got enough technique to know when I was hurting my voice, which has been very useful over time because I've known a lot of vocalists who have blown themselves out through playing singing those 7 incorrectly. Yeah, right. Yeah, playing those really long nights. And so I've been really lucky that way with my instrument. But I've also seen some professionals who ended up getting nodes because they were just singing wrong. And you don't always know you're doing it. And so I was lucky to get that sort of training. But I don't read music the way that some of my friends who say went to college and studied jazz or studied classical music and have that foundation. I've learned a lot over the years just through osmosis and hanging out with other musicians. So I can write a chord chart and read them, and I understand theory enough to build chords and know why it works, and continue to delve into theory in a way that allows me to communicate with other musicians, and also to understand things that I'm hearing. But if you put sheet music in front of me, I have to sound it out as opposed to sight read it because I'm a folk musician. Like it's blues. Right. But I learned how to play with my ears as opposed to, by somebody teaching me how.
Right. That's very cool. And I mean, really, I'll play a clip here in a little bit because I just want the viewers to hear. But where did you come up with the concept and idea of the Asylum Street Spankers? My goodness, man. What a project that was.
That was an amazing thing. I did I did a class which was about trying to figure out what it is that you want, how to realize the things that you want in life. And one of the things that I really wanted was a music community of people that got together and played music that they loved and could experiment and try different things and really share the love of early American music, just not the stuff that you hear on the radio, but sort of the stuff that emerged at the dawn of recording. You know, the music that Harry Smith would have called old, weird America. Folks like Blind Willie Johnson and Doc Boggs and Bessie Smith and these players that, because they arose at the first time we were able to record music, we don't have anything before it to compare them to. And before the 1930s, like around 1935, they started to rebroadcast musical performances from New York City all the way across the U.S. And that was the first time that happened, where a radio station would broadcast and the next radio station would pick it up and broadcast it to the next radio station. So you could have people dancing in L.A. listening to the radio for a dance band that was playing in Radio City Music Hall or something like that in the East Coast. And that's an amazing technological thing. But it changed music, because before that, if you had a record from, like the north side of Chicago, it sounded different than a record from the south side of Chicago or the east side of Chicago, because people learned by listening to the musicians around them. Sometimes somebody would go from town to town and travel, but mostly you learned by listening to the folks who were around you. And so music was really regional. Like the barrel house piano sound of Texas didn't happen anywhere else. It took a certain amount of strange incidents, like all the freed slaves looking for work in the lumber yards of East Texas, and the people running the lumber yards saying, well, we've got to be able to keep these people here. How are we going to keep them here? Well, they like that piano. Let's keep the piano. And people who weren't trained taught themselves how to play piano, listening to the other person who was there playing piano. And so you got these different sounds, like bass lines. You probably heard the bass line go, boom, dum, da, dum, 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 da, dum. So that's a left-hand bass technique and a piano technique. And that was from a certain area of Texas. And eventually it spreads around. But the origin of that stuff fascinates me. Folks like Blind Willie Johnson, who played slide guitar in open tunings and probably used a knife as opposed to a bottleneck. He recorded in the 1920s, and his stuff is some of the best music that I have ever heard, some of the hauntingest music. My single favorite piece of recorded music in all history is Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground, that Blind Willie Johnson recorded in the 1920s. And it's lo-fi because it was, recorded at the earliest age of a portable recorder, like a 500-pound recorder that you put in the back of your car. And EQ-wise, it's like a little mid-range spike. But if you're listening to this, check this out. Go on YouTube. You can find it. Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground by Blind Willie Johnson. Just spooky, amazing, weird music.
Very cool. I will look that up in myself as well. I mean, just in the last, I'd say 6 or 7 years, I listened very myself, iconically, to blues all growing up because that's what was in Austin. Mm-hmm. And really, it's just unfortunate that scene is gone in a sense of, sure, we have great still. Gary Clark Jr., amazing, absolutely unreal. But would you say yourself it's not quite the same scene as it once was when you were arriving here?
Yeah, things definitely have changed. It used to be inexpensive. Yeah, it used to be inexpensive to live in Austin. Austin didn't have major industry, and it had a constantly renewing audience for live music because you had the colleges here. You have UT and 4 other colleges here in town. And so every year you got a new batch of people who are just learning to drink and going out and see live music. You also had the seat of state government. So you had people coming in for political caucus and conventions, and after work hours, they went out to have a good time. And so it created this great environment for the live music scene. Now, of course, Austin's changed. It's expensive to live here now, and the tech industry has become it's unfortunate. The tech industry would not have come to Austin if it wasn't for the arts scene, if it wasn't for the music scene, because the young talent that Dell needed to grow his business were only going to move somewhere that they wanted to live. And so they looked around and they said, hey, Austin, Texas, that's where the music is. That's why they moved here.
With Google coming, I mean, I've been in Austin for 35 years, guy, and I was off in the military from 2006. And that was about the time that those new offices started coming to town. And I remember a friend called me and he said, hey, here Google's moved to town. Like, do what, Google? Why are they moving to town? And from then on, as you said, it changed Austin forever. It really did.
Definitely.
But I mean, just getting back really in that dull Asylum Street spankers.
Oh, yeah.
I really have to ask, coming up with the concepts of things like singing a song about your scrotum. Where was the bait on figuring that one out?
Okay, so so Scrotum is a song that mainly was sung by the band when I wasn't there all the time. So I started the band and I gave Christina Mars her first ukulele. I gave Pops his first banjo. I gave Whammo his first washboard, and we all started to make tapes and pass them around of music that we liked from old country songs, old blues songs, old gospel songs. And so when the band started, we did have some original material and we did do some novelty stuff, but it was more specifically about playing old music, just like trying to figure out what was going on in those old recordings. But Christina and Whammo and some of the other folks who were in the band later got a lot more into the novelty songs and had some great success with like the Scrotum song, which was the #1 requested song on one of the major Chicago radio stations. It's
unreal.
Give the people what they want. And if it's scrotum, it's my wrinkly, crinkly bag of skin. That's the song. When I first moved to Austin, and I didn't have a band. I just I started to work with people when I got here. So I was mainly a singer-songwriter who was interested in playing, but really didn't know that much. So I spent all my time at blues jams and open mics at places like Joe's Generic Bar and the 311 Club when it opened, and open mics at Chicago House, where I was learning about songwriting and meeting songwriters.
Yeah, very cool. I'm gonna go ahead and play for the viewers here a little clip of the Asylum Street Spankers. Here we go, guys.
Scrotum, it's my wrinkly, crinkly bag of skin. Scrotum, it's the thing I keep my testes in. Well, it's wrinkly and it's crinkly and it's covered in hair, and I don't know what I'd do if it was not there. Oh, scrotum, it's my wrinkly, crinkly bag of skin.
With you releasing people and playing with people like Ray Charles, B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, who would you say was the best teacher, the best kind of give their own advice to you and help as you were, growing with this amazing music?
And so, to be clear, I was on the bill with Ray Charles. I did not play with Ray Charles.
Oh, okay.
But there was a couple different big shows where I got to share the same stage, but not like in the same, but not in the same band. But that's a great question.
You were in the same vicinity of him.
Well, we played on the stage and then we got off the stage, and
there you go.
So I mean, that's a good person, good people to open for. Ray Charles as an icon of American music, you can put him next to Elvis, and Elvis doesn't win.
Awesome.
So when I think about people who have been really good mentors I guess I can think of some musicians, but also some people who did other things in the business as well. But I wouldn't be a musician now if I had not have seen and met John Hammond. John Hammond was an acoustic blues player.
Yes, I do remember John Hammond.
Yeah, the son also of John Hammond. John Hammond, who produced the Spirituals to Swing concert in New York City in the 30s. That was sort of the first time that white high class America is exposed to black music, like in a way, like in the greatest stage in America, being saying like, see, this is high art, you know. So John Hammond's son, John Hammond, grew up around some of that, but then sort of went his own way and tried to avoid any sort of nepotism through connections with his father, and became a musician and did his own thing. Well, I saw him play when I was 18 years old, and it totally changed my life. Before that, I was really into punk rock, and I had already started to learn how to play harmonica and guitar a little bit for like 2 years. And a friend of mine said, hey, you like acoustic blues? You should go check out this guy who's playing in Lawrence. And I was living in Kansas City at the time. So I drove out to Lawrence and I saw John Hammond play. And it was $6 at the door. And I was like, $6? I don't want to pay $6. And the guy at the door just looks me up and down and says, you just pay the money. If you don't like it, I'll give you your money back. And, I was like, okay. And I went in, and it changed my life, because I loved punk rock. I loved punk rock because it was something you could do yourself. It was visceral. It was, it was immediate. It was in your face. But I saw John Hammond play, and I saw the same degree of passion and intensity, but there was no waste. Everything was focused. It was just like a gateway, to another world. It was ecstatic, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. I want to do it. I want to do that.
No kidding.
And I talked to him, and like the next time he came to town, I went early, so I got there early to the gig while he's changing strings and stuff like that. And I said like, hey, do you have any advice or anything? And he's like, well, you should wrap the string around this way. But, I'm like, no. I mean, like, for my career and stuff like that. And he thought for a second, and he says, you outlive your critics. People are not going to be happy. There'll always be somebody who doesn't like you, because that's just the nature of people. You can't please everybody. You don't want to please everybody. You'll go mad and dilute what you're doing trying to please everybody. You outlive your critics. Just keep doing what you're doing. This is always cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's funny about, you have somebody that you are influenced and look up to, and you say, oh my gosh, I spoke words to him. You just had that moment of, yes, they speak too.
Oh, yeah. When I moved down to Austin, I went from listening to harmonica players like James Cotton, where I was wearing out cassette tapes of him. And when I moved down to Austin, suddenly I was back behind Antone's, hanging out in the alley with him. And I'll always remember the first thing that he said to me, hey, kid, pass that over here.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to pass it over here to Sean, my co-host. Maybe I've been derailing you because I've been fangirling out. But
I guess one of the things that came to mind definitely is you talked about there are some people that, people aren't as knowledgeable of because they've passed or they've moved on from the city. Mm-hmm. Currently, is there anybody like that you see that interests you that maybe not everybody knows about?
Sure. There's a great guitar player named Willie Pipkin, whose birthday it is today, I believe, who has been who does a Sunday night residency at the Continental Club, and I guess he's about 30 or something now. He's got a kid, and he's but what an amazing musician this guy is. He's just a super solid guitar player, great musician, and he used to play in a band called the South Austin Jug Band. When I first saw him he was a bluegrass guitar picker, but he totally, at a certain point, just looked at what he was doing and just like, all right, I've got this trick bag. Now I'm going to do this trick bag. You know, like I'm going to expand. You know, like I'm going to play blues. I'm going to play jazz. I'm going to play, you know, everything, and just continually going into the instruments and getting better. David Jimenez is another great guitar player, songwriter, person here in this town that I really love getting to see. You know, just awesome. There's a lot of players who I get to work with who aren't front people, but I think that they are remarkable musicians, like Oliver Steck, you know, who plays piano and accordion and harmonica and trumpet, and you know, and is equally at home, you know, when he was playing with Bob Schneider as when he's playing trad jazz or, you know, playing with songwriters. The thing that really makes the Austin music scene different than, say, Nashville, which certainly has comparable levels of pickers, you know, like professional musicians who have spent their life refining what they do. But while Nashville has this infrastructure toward business and publishing that Austin just doesn't have, which is weird. But what Austin does have is a much more complicated and esoteric scene, and the bands are less likely to be focused on their mass market appeal. You know, like if a lot of the music that you see in LA, in New York, you know, like it's so carefully presented and packaged as the thing that it wants to be.
They're trying to fit in a box.
Yeah. Like in the old style of record stores, which bin does this record, you know, fit in? You know, is it going to go in the metal? Is it going to go in metal? Is it going to go in rock? Is it going to go in country? But in Austin, you've got guitar player. You know, like let's say this guitar player, and it doesn't even matter if it's guitar, it could be keyboard or trumpet or accordion or whatever. But he plays with this one band on Monday that does traditional jazz. Then on Tuesday, he backs up the singer-songwriter on the gig that they've got. On Wednesday, he has that country band. On Thursday, there's the jazz, you know, there's the blues act, and there's the reggae band that's got a big show on Friday. And so you do that for a year, you do that for 2 years, you do that for 5 years, and you forget which hat you're supposed to wear to the gig. And that's when the music really gets interesting, because it's less about genre and it's more about ecstasy. It's about letting go of the indicators and getting to the heart of it.
And more about talking about what you were talking about earlier, saying that you're just a fan of the music. You're not really trying to fit into a... Yeah, exactly. I dig that. Yeah, and I appreciate that.
It's more in the instant. It's more in the instant as opposed to like, I can sell this, you know?
Right. And I mean, I don't think... you know, as an artist myself, I don't think I sit here and listen to all the same type of music all the time. And so, like, to sit there and try to play all the same type or to put out the same type of music all the time seems kind of counterproductive, really.
Yeah. I've played a lot of blues festivals where, you know, every act on the bill is considered a blues act, but still the differences between the bands can be profoundly different, right? You know,
totally.
Because, you know, like if you listen to the albums that Gary Clark is making right now, they don't sound at all like Freddie King. I know that Gary Clark is a big Freddie King fan, but the thing that he's doing is trying to make new music. You know, he's trying to not just re-record Freddie King songs, which I love Freddie King. I've played a lot of Freddie King covers. I think that's super strong, excellent music, and I'll never stop listening to it.
Definitely.
But I'm not going to be Freddie King. I'm not going to be Robert Johnson. I'm not going to be any of those people. I'm me. I have to tell my story. I have to play my things. You know, there's the big conversation about cultural appropriation of music, which I think is a conversation that everybody should be a part of. That doesn't mean that I'm going to stop playing blues because I love that music. That's the music that made me want to play music.
And that's true to who you are.
Yeah, I think so. I did not invent where this music came from.
Right.
I learned.
It's what you felt. Yeah, and it's what you naturally gravitated towards. So it makes sense.
That was what made me want to play. Yeah,
I agree with that.
As an artist, it's interesting. No matter what your art is, whether you're a writer, a painter, or a musician, what is it that made you pick up the pen or the brush or the pick? What was it that pushed you over the line from being a casual observer to being the sort of obsessive that it's required to be an artist?
Yeah, and pretty determined and pretty, especially, for you playing music as long as you have, in the Austin area. I mean, it's an up and down, as I'm sure you know far more than I know. So, yeah, I mean, it takes a different type of person to do something like that.
There's a lot of up and down in it, and like the economic crisis of was it 2008? That hurt the music industry. The 9/11 hurt the music industry. Where people just didn't go out. The virus that we're experiencing right now, where the only empathetic and logical answer for anybody is to stay inside. And if you're a live musician, you can't gather people. It's totally against exactly what we should be doing right now. This is a novel virus. It's the first time that this virus is working its way through the human population. And eventually it is going to work its way through the whole population. But everything that we can do to slow it down as much as possible so the infrastructure that exists right now can get the best chance to deal with that is exactly what we should do. We need to be on podcasts and stay in our homes and for live musicians, live
Still
streams.
practicing our safe measures like we're doing on a simple phone call rather than meeting. It's not happening, Austin. Stay indoors. Listen to the ordinance. Listen to this new order put in place. Just protecting as a whole and keeping Austin safe.
Well, and like I was telling some musicians the other day, I mean, this is a great time to be creative, to write, and to be able to stop playing shows for a minute and just have that time to just write, if that's what you choose to do. So.
Yeah. Good time to be in the woodshed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the most creative time to having all your thoughts in place and just peace and quiet. I playing in the closet somewhere, right? Put my thoughts together pretty well doing that.
So, maybe you've heard this too, that apparently Shakespeare wrote King Lear.
Yes. Yeah.
When there was a plague and he was forced to keep from writing or keep from performing.
So go ahead and tell the viewers, tell us this new album you have released.
The most recent record that we put out, which is called Conspirators, is my wife and I, and it's very, very stripped down. It's all acoustic or resonator guitar and voice. It is sort of the opposite.
With that, I mean, if you want to get your wife, love to hear from both of y'all.
All right. Well, hold on one second.
I'll start off with you real quick on the rapid fire questions.
All right, well, here she is.
Oh, here we go. Perfect. How are you? Good to meet you,
Hello.
As we've been talking in text. So I brought in forth having God talk about y'all's new album. And with y'all putting it together and y'all's creativity in both y'all's minds. Tell us about that album.
I'm sure guys already told you, it's just a stripped down album. It's basically what we can do on our own. It's a real representation of what we're able to do in person. It's not showy in a way that we have to have other people there to perform with us or have any overlays from a computer or anything.
In a lot of ways, it's sort of like the alternative way of making music as opposed to what we usually hear on the radio these days. Sort of the gearhead mentality that comes along with computer-based recording, of which I've done a lot. You're always looking, I could add this part, I could add this. You could literally keep layering tracks infinitely.
Right.
But what we want...
Done.
Yeah, right. How do you know you're done? That's exactly right. But what we want to do is just try to do this with no overdubs, no pitch correction, just the sound of us in the room. Originally, we thought we would make, we would do it as a demo, just to send it around, but we really liked the sound of it, and people reacted really strongly to it. So we kept on chasing that same thing, which was just stripping it all the way down and trying to go as far on the other side of that, of the digital divide as possible. How much back to the simplest possible parts can we get it?
Right.
Absolutely. Very cool. I mean, and guy was telling me that it was your idea, Jess, on the creativity of, I love it, playing the closet, playing the garage.
Spring tour.
Yeah.
I can't wait to tune in. And have my viewers tune in as well.
I had my first tour set up that Guy wasn't on, and that it was exciting for me to do something on my own. And I was going to be playing the Byron Bay Festival in Australia for 150,000 people, and I was really excited, and that got canceled. And so I was up late one night and thinking about, well, gosh, all me and Guy's work's gone, and I don't get to go on a tour. Guy's not going to tour. And so that night that I stayed up till 5:30 in the morning, I just created the graphics and set up an in-house tour. And it's going to be interesting. Yesterday was the first night that we did it, and the kids got involved and had fun, and we kind of chaotically cooked dinner while playing in the kitchen.
Right. Definitely.
We have a very small kitchen, so.
Yeah.
Well spoken on. Well.
Also, I think that going forward in the immediate future for musicians, there's a period right now where we're all in lockdown, and that's what we should be doing, where we can share our music using the same technology that we're using to talk right now. But probably, like in the future immediately after this, it's still going to take a while for the virus to work its way through humanity, and probably big shows aren't going to be what we should be doing. So
for a while.
So if you're a musician right now, the idea is to try to figure out, how can we stay in connection with people? How can we continue to bring our music and connect with the audience in a way that's useful to everybody involved? We're doing this, we've got the Venmo and the PayPal addresses up, and
kindly begging people for their generosity,
and not putting up a paywall, because right now a lot of people have no money at all. We need to help each other.
We want to spread happiness as much as we want to get a donation. So if they can't donate, please just click the share button and watch.
Yeah, anybody who's making a profit at this particular time in history should be sharing their profit, and because because disaster capitalists suck.
Amazon.
Yeah, if you find yourself in a good position right now, I hope you will do everything you can to help the people around you.
Mm-hmm. And raise awareness of those who aren't
here at the house.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Today, the kids and Guy did a in-home family workout where they all go work out in the backyard. Our oldest daughter organizes it, which is adorable. And then our neighbor homeschooled her kids and set up a table in her front yard, and I set up a table in our front yard about 15 feet apart, and she just taught the kids an art lesson in the front yard, which they really enjoyed. Tomorrow they're going to do some cross stitching.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, the community's pulling together. We've got parents pulling together on some homeschooling. The rumor is that school's canceled for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm here trying to figure out how the heck I'm supposed to do everything I'm supposed to do during the day and also teach kids. I just can't imagine being able to. I think I've been in a panic attack for 3 days.
It's happening to everyone. I don't think that parents should worry about their kids getting behind in this particular circumstance, because it's a really scary event for them as well. And the most important thing is for us to be calm and gentle with our kids.
Especially the kids what about the low-income families that don't have a laptop or a computer? They can't they don't have the ability to do online schooling. They don't have. Yeah. I mean, we still need to realize there are people that are low income that don't have the technology readily available to live stream or to teach their kids or any of that stuff.
The good thing is y'all have found ways to get creative during it, and I think that's what everybody has to do regardless of what your circumstance is to find ways to get creative with it and do things that are still as similar as we can be while respecting the distance as well.
Right. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to have to hop back off of here because I'm hanging some candles from the ceiling for our daughter's 10th Harry Potter themed Zoom internet birthday party at 5.
Which I still haven't read any of those books.
Well, now you have some time and you should. They're good. Yeah. But I
should have said that.
Go because the kids I can hear them. They're supposed to be blowing balloons up, but I can just hear squealing, which means they're fucking with my balloons. Yeah. So
those bastards.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you guys. If you need me for another thing, just let me know. Yeah. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you.
To go hang more things.
I'll tell you what, guy, I really want to get into these the new segment they're doing of rapid fire questions.
I'm ready.
I'm going to give you rapid fire questions on all things Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Just put in your brain right now, Austin, nothing else.
Put me in, Coach. I'm ready.
All right. First question. Give you about 5 to 8 seconds per answer. That's it. That's all I'm giving you. Who would you say is the most talented existential musician in Austin to date, not including yourself?
Rocky Erickson, because of the existential angle. Pioneer of psychedelic music.
Yeah, man.
Good relation, yeah. What would you say you missed most about Austin?
I miss hanging out on the drag in the 90s and going to video game arcades with the coins that I had made after gigs. Like where you'd make we got $30, we got $7 in quarters. I'm stopping by the video arcade on the way home. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
People emptying their purse in the tip jar.
Yeah, in that sense now. You were saying, Sean, what?
I said people emptying their purse into the tip jar,
Yeah, right.
Where you get all the coins, you're like, oh, okay.
Favorite place to eat?
Valentina's, the real deal Holyfield breakfast taco. It's the best taco in the world.
There's so many taco places in Austin.
Yeah.
Too many, right?
Yeah.
I've been told to go there. Just haven't quite made it around yet.
Yep, it's down
but the
down
born and
south.
raised I am, I should.
Yeah. Valentina's, the real deal Holyfield breakfast taco. You got to get there before 11.
And I mean, I've had Valentino's barbecue. I've had all of that, but I just haven't gotten their breakfast taco. It hasn't come across mine yet, so.
You got to step up your early morning game, TJ.
Sean, you have one? Give him rapid fire. Austin question.
So Mopac or 35? Which is better?
I drive Mopac if I have the choice.
Agreed.
I remember when I first moved to town, Mopac had already been built, but there was just nobody on it. I'd be riding on my motorcycle on Mopac and be like, why did they do this? And it's amazing that they actually built infrastructure in Austin before it was already too late. But we haven't seen that in 20 years.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Too late a long time ago. What would you say is the best venue in Austin to date?
Wow, what a hard question, because venues can be so many different things. I miss Chicago House as a listening room because of the beautiful people who ran it. I miss the Liberty Lunch for big shows because the gravel,
Liberty Lunch is amazing.
You're just like hanging out, because you could be as nasty and it was still like being outside. That was really great. I miss the old Antones. When I see the old Antones, I mean the one on Guadalupe. Although there's numerous ones before that one, because that's where when I first moved to Austin, I would go hang out. I miss Joe's Generic Bar, because I've got no good place to get a good workout for my immune system anymore. So that's a good handful right there.
Absolutely. How could I guess you were going to say Joe's? But tell you what,
It's my alma mater.
You start going to the older places, and let's go with, if you were to go to a venue now in Austin, where would you go?
Saxon Pub is my favorite. That's like my living room. Richard Vinoy, the sound guy there, is the best in town. So I just love that room. Love the Continental Club. Love Antone's. All those are places that I just, I reliably will have a good time, and it doesn't matter who's playing there.
And just alone, Saxon Pub, I love their sound in that place.
Yeah.
Just
Richard Vinoy
everything just matches perfectly.
You can go in any night of the week. It's always going to sound good.
Yeah. And the curation of the bands, it's going to be a good show. They get to pick who plays there, and they've got a lot of people want to, so the quality level is sustained.
Funny, Sean and I go back and forth this one all the time, and we always laugh about the fact that you have people that there's different names for things in Austin, because either you know this name because you've been here this period of time, or you know this name now because, well, we changed it about a year ago. So one we always go back and forth on is, which do you say, Town Lake or Lady Bird Lake?
I don't usually say Lady Bird Lake. I usually say Town Lake, and it's just been the way that.
Town Lake.
Yeah.
It's a lake going through the town, right?
I'm sure that was the qualifications when it came up.
Yeah, exactly. It was. Willie Nelson or Stevie Ray Vaughan?
Oh, what a hard question!
I agree. And Sean's the one that gave this one.
Yeah,
said,
that was mine.
It's a great question. I cannot possibly choose. I think they're both unique and yet drawing on tradition. They're both fabulous artists. I wish we were able to see Stevie Ray Vaughan's third act. That's the saddest thing, is because because it's been really great watching Willie Nelson live out his best life.
His kids.
Yeah, and continuing to play and really getting everything that he deserved. Really, just a wonderful thing. And Stevie Ray Vaughan is now forever going to be, an icon. Because he was still burning so brightly when he died.
Yeah,
definitely.
And quick reminder, he was 90.
But it's interesting. There's statues of both on opposite sides of Town Lake.
Right.
Do what?
There's statues of both on opposite sides of Town Lake. There's the Auditorium for Stevie Ray Vaughan statue, and there's the Willie Nelson statue that's at the Mueller. Yeah.
Never going to put two and two on that together. You were correct. As far as like Stevie Ray Vaughan, it was 1990? Am I correct?
Yeah,
it was plane crash.
Just after I moved here in January of 1990, it was that year that he died in the plane crash.
Okay.
I remember everybody going out to the park, and everybody brought a boombox and put it on the same radio station, so that the music was just covering the whole park, all from everybody's little boombox.
That's what this city's about.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I was 5 years old. To my viewers, I was 5 years old, but although, thank you, my parents, for giving me those tunes at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Dan's or Fran's?
Dan's or Fran's? Wow.
The ultimate debate.
Dan's.
Really?
Yep.
I
hated Dan's more than Fran's. I also like the Dirty Burger.
Yeah.
Which was like they used to say they would form the patties and stick them into the armpit, like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I really like the Huts Burger too, but that's also gone. So
yeah.
The go-to bacon cheeseburger?
If bacon is an option, I say yes.
Good answer.
Right. Where can our viewers find you right now, Guy?
Right now, the best thing to do is to go to the Facebook band page, although I have my own website, which is guyforsyth.com. We have Guy Forsyth Band on Facebook, Guy_Forsyth on Twitter, and Guy Forsyth Band on Instagram. And they'll keep churning off other platforms, and we'll keep chasing them. So that's probably the best way to find out what we're doing. We're going to do. We're playing in the living room or the dining room tomorrow. It's the dining room table. Oh, cool. It's the dining room table show.
Vinny's going to be disappointed you didn't promote it correctly.
And has that new album been? Do you have it released yet, or?
Oh yeah. It's out. The one of the songs on it, "The Things That Matter," was #1 on the folk DJ charts for a period this last year, and it charted on the folk charts. And we will hopefully, I mean, everything's obviously a little bit slowed down right now. We were thinking we would be recording this spring, but right now we're going to have to figure out exactly how we're going to do this. So other than doing stuff, recording some stuff here at the house, the next album is not due out yet, probably for another 6 months.
But you can find everything on your website, or?
Yeah, we do our best to keep you informed. If you're interested in us, you can go to the website, which is guyforsyth.com, and Guy Forsyth Band on Facebook. Thank you so much for taking time and talking to us, because as independent musicians, the only way that people find out is by word of mouth. So we really appreciate it.
And I got to fangirl out myself by talking to an Austin icon.
I really appreciate your complimentary words of the, fellow musicians here in the Austin area, and then I guess defiance of the system and just deciding to do what you love to do always. And that's something that's hard for artists to do. So it's commendable.
It is. And it's really scary. And without the culture of people choosing to go out and see live music in Austin, I would not and could not have had the career that I've had. And I was lucky that I found Austin at the time that I did, because I don't know if someone with the limited resources that I had would have the same experiences to Austin now, because it is not a cheap place to live. It's not as expensive as New York or San Francisco, but we're trying.
we're trying to compete for that title.
On it.
Yeah, I'm doing the best I can.
And I see some young musicians now who are really talented, who can't find the place, the niche to sit in where they can connect with listeners, because music has to be about service to the level that the music has to be worth something to somebody, right?
Right. And that's what I've been telling people with those live streams, is like, you can't just come on there every night and do the same thing. You wouldn't go play a show and play the same set every night. So you've got to vary it up. As long as you vary it up, we're tuning in.
Yeah, trying to keep up different material and stuff like that, and that's what for the rest of the day I'll probably spend learning or going over a couple of songs that I haven't ever played or haven't played for a couple years, so that I have something to bring to the table, so to speak. That's the running gag for tomorrow. And giving people content. There has to be a reason why they're tuning in. One thing that people have said about what we're doing is that we are pretty candid about what we're doing and personable. We're talking to people directly, and it's less weird, right? Do you want me to tie your tie? Yes. This is Bella Jane. It's Bella's 10th birthday, and so I'm going to tie her tie.
Oh,
Happy birthday.
Well, Guy, really enjoyed it, bud.
It's really nice talking to you.
Go here.
Thanks for taking time to talk to us. We really appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Stay safe out there, and
wash your hands.
Wash those hands. All right, bud.
Bye-bye.